Oh, hey everybody! Welcome back to Dirt's Daily. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the comics that came out this week, and let's kick it off with DC like we usually do. Kick it off. I said it. We got 3 Blackest Night tie-in books this week. Of course, there was Blackest Night number 2, you had Blackest Night Batman number 1, and you had Green Lantern Corps 39. Let's move this one somewhere else. Alright, now, out of these 3 books, they were all really good. I'd have to say if you have to skip one, it's probably going to be Green Lantern Corps 39. The truth is that as much as that book is a Blackest Night story, it's really a Green Lantern Corps book first, which is great for the Green Lantern Corps readers. But if you're not a regular reader of Green Lantern Corps, then a lot of the stuff on here you're not really going to need. Now, if you're not a regular reader of Green Lantern Corps, but you want to get into the book, it's actually written in such a way that you get all the information you need. So you're not really going to lose out on anything. Blackest Night 2, of course, continues the core horror story that's going on in the DC universe. And if you never thought that Aquaman could be terrifying, then this is the book for you. Because this is going to show you just how insanely badass he can be, especially when he's a Black Lantern zombie. And then, of course, you have Blackest Night Batman. Blackest Night Batman is actually very interesting. And unlike most tie-in books that kind of take characters and show that they do stuff while the main story is going on, but you don't really get a feel that any of it's really important, Blackest Night Batman actually takes what feels like an important part of the story and gives it its own book, its own section, its own place in the universe. And part of what makes it really interesting is that you see characters like Deadman. How does Deadman fit into this whole idea of superheroes who can come back to life? Because after all, he kind of came back to life still as a dead guy. Trust me though, it works. All 3 of these books are great, and you really should pick up all 3. But if you gotta just, you're tight on money and you gotta cut one off the list, cut the Green Lantern Corps, but try not to if you can help it. We also had Red Robin 3 this week, and I really like what's going on in this book. Now, they took Tim Drake and they ripped him out of the role of Robin in order to put Bruce Wayne's son Damian in the role. So what's he supposed to do? Well, he becomes Red Robin. He becomes his own character. In the same way that Dick Grayson moved on to become Nightwing, you now have Tim Drake becoming Red Robin. And his story is really fascinating. It's funny, it's clever, and it's endearing. And those are some really important key points. You also really get the feeling that he's growing into his own. He's no longer, that kid who just kind of followed Bruce Wayne around and got to become Batman because he was kind of lucky, really. You really get the sense that he's a guy who can hold his own. And they filled him with such an intriguing cast of surrounding characters. Ra's al Ghul and the Assassin's Guild, coming around, League of Assassins, my mistake. But having all of those guys in the book really adds something special to it and makes it for quite an enjoyable read. Alright, moving over to Marvel, we got Deadpool 13. Now, if you haven't been reading Deadpool, then this is the perfect point for you to jump on, because this starts really the new direction in the book. Up until this point, this has really been tied into Dark Reign, Norman Osborn, all of that kind of stuff going on. But now Deadpool, he got the big payoff he wanted. He has all this money, and so now he's just going to go and goof off and find himself in these wacky adventures that he's known for. If you read Cable and Deadpool and you loved that series and you weren't really sure what was going on with this book, this is now the time you want to jump back on. If you want something disconnected from Dark Reign and everything like that, it's a good book to check out. We also got Ultimate Comics SpiderMan #1. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this is the best Spider-Man book on the market right now. In fact, I'd have to say this is the best Spider-Man book I've read in a couple years. Easily. If not in forever, it feels like. Spider-Man has finally been returned back to the high school kid who doesn't fit in anywhere. He's 16 years old. He's working this fast food job. He's got Gwen Stacy as his girlfriend, and he just can't catch a break. He fights supervillains. He creates his own webbing and everything like that. He can zip across the city, and yet he still has to deal with all the issues that high school kids have to deal with. This is the Peter Parker, the Spider-Man that I remember from growing up, and I'm glad that this is where they've centered the book again now. I really dig that. We also got G.I. Joe number 8. Now, for those of you who have not been following this version of G.I. Joe, this is probably the most fulfilling version of G.I. Joe we've had since the original Marvel series. But this time, Chuck Dixon is doing something a little different. Whereas he's not doing issue to issue each book that you get in your monthly stack of comics as its own standalone story. He's really building this large epic. I'm sure he has in his mind that most people buy trade paperbacks nowadays, and that's really, where the story is centered. But the effect that it really has on the story you're reading is that there are these large circles of story going on. You've got Destro doing his thing. You've got the Joes trying to figure out what's going on. Somewhere outside of all of that is the larger Cobra organization. And there are lots of little things going on that are slowly drawing together. It may seem kind of slow. It may seem kind of drawn out. But now, in issue 8, we're getting to that point where all these things are starting to get closer and closer and closer together. You really get the feeling like this is a complete world that he's constructed, and Chuck Dixon is doing his damnedest to make it a very interesting story. If you've ever been into Cold War stories, into James Bond intrigue and that type of stuff, this is really the book. This is not the hard-hitting action like what you see in the movie this summer, or the crazy over-the-top action like you got in the old Marvel series and in that Image one that we won't talk about a whole lot. But this is really a great series and one you need to be checking out. And finally, The Walking Dead 64. Now, I've sworn off The Walking Dead a couple of times, and people who read it will know what I'm talking about. Talking about, like, the governor and what he was doing in his little town. Yeah, it made a lot of people not want to read it anymore. And then there was issue 48, where the prison was attacked, and, well, people who read it know what I'm talking about. And I don't want to spoil it for a lot of people, because I know there are people that still pick up the trades. But this book is his new storyline about the Hunters. And this is, I think, chapter 2 or 3 of the Hunter storyline, and it's brilliant. He has taken storyline ideas that you don't normally associate with the whole zombie genre and have mixed it in really well. In fact, you could really say that The Walking Dead is a zombie book second and a character book first. If you got rid of the whole idea of zombies, I'm pretty sure Kirkman could sit down and just write a series about, I don't know, desperate house husbands, if you will. He could just write some weekly drama series that has nothing to do with monsters or creatures that eat human flesh or, whatever. But the fact that he's able to do that so well in a book that also has zombies is really kind of a testament to how good of a writer he is. Because if you can take the idea of zombies and take it seriously, and take the way people act and react seriously, then you really build something that it's just epic. And quite frankly, I love it.